What's up, man? Thanks for coming on.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. I'm in Michigan, and for the people that don't know, you're in Arizona.
I'm in Seattle.
Seattle.
My family's in Arizona, but I'm in Seattle.
At least I was in the right time zone.
Yeah, well, yeah, pretty much. Yep.
This is a stupid question, but what's the weather like today? Because I feel like today is Seattle weather. It's gloomy, it's raining, and I had to wear a rain jacket today and bring an umbrella. So what's the weather like in Seattle today?
Yeah, well, I'm in my basement right now, my office space down here, and I've got my jacket on inside because it's actually 30 degrees this morning over here. Oh, wow. So it's not super rainy as of yet. I imagine it's going to be drizzly throughout the day. That's kind of the Seattle weather. So I'll expect a little bit of light rain, but it's actually pretty cold right now. So trying to deal with that.
Cool. That kind of goes hand in hand to where I think we should start is give a little context to the people. Who are you? We know where you are now. And what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Cole Cortright. I am a loan originator located in Seattle, Washington. Been in the business for a little over 2.5 years now. Spent a lot of time working as an admin in the first year and a half of the business, learning the ropes of the systems, how things work, and what goes where. And now I'm in the past around 8 months now, I've been doing the whole LO thing full time and really riding the market as we're seeing. It's a lot of volatility right now, but just along for the ride.
Yeah, that's all we can do.
Yeah.
I think, and me and you have been on a very similar path. The question I want to come back to is what were you doing just before this? But
sure.
I did medical device sales for about 7-8 years. I lived in DC, lived in Chicago. My mom has been doing real estate for about 20-25 years now. Cool. The conversation was always to come back and do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I moved home March 1st, 2020. So really 3 years will be... For me to be licensed, my 3 years will be in July. So we haven't been in the business quite a bit. We only know what we know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny, through 2020, 2021, when we experience new things that never happened before 2019, I go, okay, that's all we know is just these common day practices of dealing with the 2020 environment or atmosphere.
Yeah.
What were you doing just before getting into the mortgage business?
Yeah, so I actually worked in tech. And so within that, there's a drone manufacturer. So like the drones, like the quadcopters that fly around and people use them to take photos or whatever. I worked for a manufacturer that was actually located here in Bothell specifically. It's a little bit north of Seattle area. And I did that for 4 years out of high school, actually. So I had worked that job for about 1.5 years in high school. And then they actually started sending me off to travel and do conventions and shows and trainings and things like that out of high school. And so I had a really good job and I just ran with that, and it was a great opportunity. And then another one came up in real estate, and that's where I am today. So I joined real estate in about December 7th, 2020. So that was when I officially joined, and I got licensed just about a week or two before that to be a licensed loan originator. So yeah, that's where my journey was before the real estate gig.
So you've been doing it longer than me, technically.
I don't know, a little bit.
Well, I do kind of piggyback off of my mom's experience.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of feel like, if she's got 20, maybe I take half of that because I've been around those conversations for so long. So I'm not your stereotypical 2-year agent, but.
Sure. No, yeah, I 100%. I joined a team, and the lead of our team has been in the business for 20 years, and there's a bunch of people that have been in the business for 10 years, 15 years. So absolutely lean on those conversations. And yeah, you get more exposure to things that you wouldn't otherwise know about being in the business for only a couple of years, but now you have almost over 100 years of combined experience. You get all this information compressed down into a shorter time frame because of that.
It's like learn from my mistakes.
Yes. Yep.
And I don't think that a lot of young people are asking the right questions to where they want to be. They're asking questions maybe to where somebody would be in a lateral form versus the agents that have been doing it, or the loan officers have been doing it for 20, 30 years. Is, again, learn from my mistakes. They've what me and you experience day to day with problems. It ain't the first time, it ain't the last time, but going to the right person with those problems is the name of that game.
Yeah, 100%.
Too many young people are not necessarily having those conversations or surrounding themselves with the right people that are going to help them learn, grow, develop, but at the same time, be like on steroids. Like, take all of that information and be on steroids, so your year or your 2 years of progression is like 10 to 15 years for what they actually had to do.
Yeah.
And that's valuable. I'm sure you'll look back on these opportunities and the experience, and me as well, and go, wow, that was worth $1 million.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. It's tough because people don't necessarily want to delay the gratification of like learning. Cause I mean, for the first year and a half when I was working as the admin, I took basically a 50% pay cut to what I was getting paid before that job. So that was super tough to make that jump into a job where I was getting paid decent money and I was living on my own. I actually moved back in with my parents to take this job to be admin for about a year and a half, just to get my feet under me and make sure I was really making the right decision for myself. And those are things that are tough. They're not fun. They're not things that you like want to do. They're not flashy, exciting things. So to be able to make that decision, it's tough for a lot of people to take that step and recognize there's value in taking less money now, but looking on the road ahead and seeing what the opportunity lies there. And yeah, that experience is invaluable. There's no price you can put on the experience of all these top producing people that you can just listen in on and be in the same room with those people. So it's tough because you have to make some sacrifices up front, and you've got to look really long term, 5-10 years down the line, to really understand the value that you're getting out of that experience.
Where do I want to be? What do I want to be doing? And it's funny you say that, because again, I just feel like me and you have done a lot of very similar things. Yeah. I took a pay cut. Going from a device, coming back home. I moved back in with my parents. Yeah. And there was some silver lining, which obviously there's silver lining to what you're doing now. And sure. I wish I would have. My normal conversation nowadays is, I wish I would have done this 10 years ago. Yeah. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. We're here now. But I moved in. We stayed at my parents' house, and it was in the middle of 2020.
Yep.
So a very unique time, and we were only planning on staying for 3 months. It ended up being 8 months.
Yep.
But we were able to pay off $50,000 in student loan debt. Sacrifice. Back to your original point, sacrifice now, and I think even young people as well, or people starting, whether it's, you're 40, 50, or 60, people are not willing to upfront sacrifice for the bigger picture. Yep. And me and you just went through that, and I think you're going to say yes, but would you change anything about your decision?
I mean, obviously, hindsight is 20/20, so there's things that you would change about, like when I first got my big boy job that I was still kind of in high school in, and when I graduated high school, I moved out, and it wasn't the best financial decision, but I learned a lot from it. So you make mistakes, you make decisions that you're like, oh, maybe I could have done that better, but ultimately it's gotten you to where you are today, and that's part of the journey. So you just got to appreciate the journey and learn from it, and it helps you grow more. Like if you have more hardship in your life or more challenges you have to overcome, you're going to grow more that way. Like smooth seas don't make great sailors, or whatever the saying is. That saying I definitely hold true to. I think that's a very important thing to understand, is hardships will make you a better person overall. Yeah, and then too,
it's funny every time you say something, and I'm always thinking about get back to real estate, but at the same time, this is genuine. Like someone's going to hear this and take some great value from this. People don't want to get out of their comfort zone because of the hardships or the challenges, but you have to go through some tough times to get to great places. And I think too many, and I did it as well, people view decisions as right and wrong. There's no right and wrong. It's decision to decision to decision.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe other decision would have been more ideal, and maybe it's less ideal. But at the end of the day, if you're not making decisions, you're not evolving, you're not growing, you're not changing. And I want to go back to the original thing. You had a great job post high school, post undergrad, a lot of great experience. Sound like it was a lot of great learning.
Yeah, 100%.
And looking for the new opportunities. And I think the difference between anybody that success is subjective.
Sure.
It doesn't see a certain line of success in their life. It's purely not them being opportunist. And if me and you decided not to take advantage of real estate opportunities and make a difficult transition, and sacrifice, where would we be? No idea. I don't even care about that question because I'm happy with where I'm at right now. So,
sure. Yeah.
Team dynamics. Let's go back to that. What does your team look like? Would you guys consider yourselves a large organization, a small organization, local lenders, nationwide lenders? What's that team look like?
Yeah. So our team is a part of Movement Mortgage, which is more so a national lender, I would say. They have had a smaller presence in the past couple years, but more recently they just took on quite a few members of a past company that we were a part of. So they're definitely building out their presence. They're definitely gaining market share. Our team specifically, that's a part of Movement. We have a larger team, I would say, compared to other loan officer teams out there. We're in the range of about 10 people right now. So that's a pretty sizable team for most loan officers because they can get to a pretty high level production with just a couple support people on the team. So having that 8 to 10 people is definitely on the higher end of just the team as a whole. So definitely a bigger team.
Would you consider yourself like, local lenders?
Yeah, we absolutely we're in the community. We're local to the kind of Seattle area and Washington as a whole. A big part of my team lead's business is actually investment properties. So that also brings us out more to the Midwest and honestly all across the U.S. because we have better prices in the Midwest compared to something like the Seattle area. It's tougher to get a really solid cash flowing property in Seattle. Just prices are higher and rents don't quite match it. And you can go out to the Midwest and get it for half the price, but the same type of rent. So that's why a lot of our investments go out to the Midwest.
Yeah. I want to go to the investments because I could talk for hours about investments, and that's why I invest in the Midwest. I am from the Midwest, but that's why I invest in the Midwest.
There you go. Yep.
The numbers got to make sense, and the toughest 100%. Part is like these Californias, the Floridas, the New Yorks, the Seattles, these large major metro areas. The numbers don't always make sense.
Sure.
And that's the toughest part about investment property sometimes, especially when it comes to duplexes to quads. People are imposing fair market value for the real estate, not fair market value for market rents.
Yeah.
I believe it's worth what I can rent it for or what I can make on that.
Absolutely.
And that's not subjective. That is fact. That's analytical. That's numbers.
Yeah.
But in the Midwest, those are happen very often.
Yeah.
Outside of the Midwest, not so much.
Sure.
How important do you think it is? So the way, and the reason I'm asking is I'm kind of curious on your perspective in a larger city and a different part of the country. So here in Michigan, we're in Livingston County. It's a very small community for the most part. I think we have 200,000 people in our county.
Oh, wow.
We're adjacent to, $1 million, a million people in a county and another million people in a county. So we're adjacent to very large communities, but our community is small.
Sure.
Offers are offers.
Sure, yeah.
Over the past 2 years, we felt like, local agents and local lenders, actually probably more or less local lenders, really made a massive impact to seller desirability of accepting offers. Are you seeing the exact same thing in Seattle? Is local lenders versus a Bank of America or Chase impacting buyers' offers?
Sure. Yeah, I'll speak from my experience in the area and the partners that I have and the partners that our team has. Every agent that I talk to from any brokerage says that their local lender, the people that they know and they work with on a daily basis, are the ones that they are more focused on that type of offer. They have more interest in that, not just because they know the person, but because they know they will close the transaction. Whereas with the other big banks out there, there's always a chance that something goes wrong, and things have gone wrong in the past for them from their personal experience. And with that, they can't reach out to somebody on a weekend and get to connect with them and really hash out what's going on with the transaction, where the problems are. You have banking hours for the Chases and the Wells Fargos and things like that, and they're there from maybe 9 to 5, and then they're closing up shop for the day, and you just can't catch them again. And that's really doesn't work out in our world, because things probably go wrong on the weekend or in the later hours of the night, and that's what we have to deal with sometimes. But when you have somebody that you can reach at those hours, that's super crucial. So that's what I'm seeing, is definitely those offers they're looking more for offers with the more local lenders, the faces that they can actually see and talk to on a daily basis, versus just the big banks out there.
Competitive advantage, for communication.
Sure.
And then also, I think service. Ultimately, lending, real estate agents, there's a lot of commodities out there.
Sure.
And I think when we're dealing in commodities, it's all about the customer service. So,
100%.
why are we pushing people for our preferred lender? Well, 9 out of 10 times he will win the deal based on numbers.
Sure.
And it always comes back to going above and beyond for a service, a proponent of that.
Absolutely.
And we had a few deals. To your point, we've had a few deals. They weren't our choice, I don't care who you use ultimately.
Sure.
At the end of the day.
Yep.
I want the deal to go smooth from point A to point B,
Yeah.
and I want the deal closed.
Yeah.
If Bank of America can do that, awesome.
Yeah.
But in the past year, and just the past year, we've had 2 or 3, which is not a lot. So we normally are using local lenders.
Sure.
For reference, buy side last year we did 40 deals on the buy side. So 2 or 3 maybe were big banks.
Yeah.
One of them, we got lost in the trend, like they kept moving the file.
Okay.
And the file got lost somewhere.
Oh, geez.
And there was a timeline, and we called them up and we're like, "What's going on?" They're like,
Yeah.
"What do you mean? What's the property address? 1, 2, 3, 4 Main." They're like, "We don't have that. What are you talking about?" We're like, "What?"
Oh my God.
Luckily, we were able to kick it into high gear and figured all that stuff out. But if we didn't make that phone call, and 3 days before our expected clear to close or closing date happens and it comes and goes, depending on where we're at the process, you're kind of screwed. So that's why we like, the Coles of the world. You're seeing it from, and it's not even A to B, you're seeing it from A to Z. Mm-hmm. They're all physical humans, but
Sure.
Cole can be reached at any time of day. I try not to mess with our preferred lender on the weekends.
Sure.
Unless it is absolutely needed. When it's needed, it's needed.
Yeah.
And in this market, if you're not competitive, even from a real estate agent side, if I'm not there you'd be surprised at how many phone calls I get saying, "Hey, my agent's out of town. Hey, my agent doesn't show us on the weekends. Can you help me out?" I go, "What?" You just said your agent, you don't want to bug your agent on the weekends? That's our time.
Yeah, literally.
Customer service. And I think that it's the important part about that is getting customers to realize that working with one lender is not the same as working with another lender.
Sure.
Or real estate agent. On outside of a customer service basis, what are some of the things that Movement's doing to stay competitive in this shifting market when it comes to loans, rates from a customer service standpoint? Are there anything?
Yeah. So, rates we're always going to try and be competitive wherever we can be, and we do the best to control that as much as we can. With outside of that, one of the biggest things that Movement's working on right now as a company is the impact beyond just the rate that you're paying and the payment that you're paying. So we're really focusing, they've already been focusing on, they actually have schools. I don't know if you're familiar with Movement's style, but Movement already has some schools like elementary through high school. They're called Movement schools. Wow. And the Movement schools are fully funded by Movement. I want to say 49% of Movement's profits go to funding schools and funding the lower served communities out there. And what is really cool, they're coming out with these impact reports. And so the impact report shows you and I as the agent, and then of course the client as the borrower of the money. It shows them, okay, you had this loan closed back a year ago. That loan closed, the profits used from that loan actually went to 10 backpacks and 5 new pairs of shoes and these school supplies for all these students. And so what we're really focusing on is obviously we want to be the best lender we can be out there, but beyond that, we want to have an impact on the community as well. And so that the students in those schools, as well as the teachers, will actually receive down payment assistance from Movement when it's time for them to buy a home. So Movement's doing a lot of really cool things to serve the community today, even new loan programs too that they're trying to build out to serve the lower income communities out there, the lower served communities out there. They're coming out with programs, down payment assistance, all these things to really give back to the community.
You just blew my mind. And we're going to talk about this for a while. You just blew my mind, man. Lenders are not doing that, and if lenders are doing that, we're not talking about it.
Yes.
One thing that we're trying to incorporate into our business is a give back component to it. So,
Sure.
and we're trying to figure it all out, but in a perfect world, it's the Lotz Foundation.
Yeah.
And the Lotz Foundation gives to, 5 different entities. Yeah. And then the buyers and sellers have the ability to choose said entity, whether it's, foster, homelessness,
Sure.
animals, something like that. We're trying to incorporate that into our business to not necessarily have it be marketing and advertising, but we believe there's always got to be some type of give back component, and we always are giving, but it's not necessarily been a staple of our business.
Sure.
Where are these schools at?
Yeah, so Movement is, I want to say that it's North Carolina. It could be, I'm pretty sure it's North Carolina. But yeah, those schools are... Sorry?
I won't quote you to.
Yeah. There's been a couple opportunities to go visit headquarters. I haven't gotten the chance to yet, but I hope to soon. But yeah, I believe currently the schools are located around headquarters in North Carolina. But the idea and the goal is to have them in all 50 states is the plan. But currently, as it stands, I believe it's just in North Carolina.
That's awesome. And there's a few things when I'm having conversations with buyers, sellers, or we're doing content, a lot of the questions I try to, not often or not always, but it's questions to ask the next agent, questions to ask the next lender.
Absolutely.
And I think that's got to be a question to ask your next agent, your next lender.
Yeah.
How is your organization, giving back to our communities?
Yeah. Absolutely.
How many lenders and agents are going to say, well, we don't? That's massive. And the what was the report you said? The impact report?
Yep, it's called the impact report. So you'll see more and more movement marketing that's going to be going out that we're the next impact lender is the idea. It's the concept. So you'll see a lot more marketing come out about that and just trying to share the message, spread the message about that. And yeah, you'll definitely see more of that here coming soon.
That's so cool. And I think that the amount of things that we give to the world, I think that sometimes certain communities in America get overlooked. Sure. It is a first world problem in some capacity, but I think that a lot of communities in America get overlooked. And the fact that you guys are staying hyper-focused, giving back with profits to impact those communities. And then, two, when people do business with Movement, they're actually seeing physically that they're making an impact just by getting a mortgage, doing something, not doing anything differently than buying a house, but having an impact.
Absolutely.
I don't know if there is an answer for this, but for people that do want to also contribute, is that an option? Can people just contribute to the cause, or is the best way to contribute buying a house?
Well, yeah, it doesn't hurt to buy a house for sure. I mean, that's one of the cool things about it is buying a house is one of the best ways to build generational wealth. So that's just what's cool about our job is beyond being able to go out there and control our schedule and do all these fun things. Buying a house is the best way to build wealth, and being able to help someone through that journey is super important. Movement has a foundation. I'll need to look into the specifics of how you would donate or how you would give back to the community. But yeah, there's a Movement Foundation. If you look up Movement Foundation, you can find more information on what they're actually doing and more of the specific details of it. I don't have it on hand right now, but Movement Foundation.
Shoot me over and I'm sure we can find it on Google, but if you got a link or a good resource, we'll put it whenever this comes out in the next few weeks or so. We'll put it in a few of the descriptions to see if that's something that people can start contributing to. Because again, I think people do want to benefit the communities, give back, but they don't necessarily know the best routes or the best ways to do it. It's more or less case by case basis, like a disaster or a need or a cause.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure, given the resource, people are willing to look into it. And honestly, for me, man, I was more or less asking for me. Because and then two, that's an expectation that I'm going to hold to any other affiliate that we do business with. How are you contributing?
Yeah. So really, my biggest way of doing it today is through education. And that's what's super important to me is you hear all these situations where people get into these loan programs or products, or they go through the whole process and they don't really know what happened. They know they own a house now, but they're not really understanding of what happened, what it really means for them. And I see that happen, and I want to be better about the communication and the education of my clients, and really anybody else. It isn't even just necessarily my clients, because I share the information on social media as much as I can. And if they work with me, that's great. If they find a better deal, I'll tell people, hey, that's a better deal for you. Go with it. Go for it. Run with it. Take that better rate. Take that better program that we can offer, and go with it. Because the most important thing at the end of the day is that you are the owner of that home. You are getting the benefits of home ownership. You're getting the appreciation, all those things. If you can buy a home today, buy a home. If it's with me, that's great. If it's not with me, also great. But yeah, most important thing today for me that I can do in my day-to-day is the education of new and existing homeowners, potential homeowners out there, and helping them better understand what it is that they need to do to own a home.
You hit the nail on the head, man. And we do enough business to where we're not necessarily just seeing somebody as a transaction or
Sure.
a payment,
Yep.
but it's just driving. And if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
We care that you are confident and understand every decision that you make throughout the buying or selling process, and you're
Absolutely.
educated. So you know.
Yes.
And there's too many times where we get phone calls after people bought a house and they go, "What did I do?"
Yeah.
So and so just sold me a house, and we're in here and it's been 3 months and I don't even know what the hell just happened. And now
Yep.
they're asking us, what should we be doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a lot of, hey, grab my hand, I'm going to pull you through these things. But
Sure.
again, I take the time, and I'm sure you do as well, to say, this is the decision we're making.
Yep.
This is the question. These are our options.
Mm-hmm.
This is where those options lead us. But you need to understand. So again, when the dust settles, it's not
Yeah.
what just happened?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's even times where, not our people, because we're trying to drive home that education, but people go to the closing table and literally stand up and go, again, what's going on right
Yeah.
now? I'm confused. We want to avoid that, because if that
course.
happens, you're not getting a phone call. If
Yeah.
that happens, I'm not getting a phone call down the road. And
Yep.
if I've said this, I've said it 1,000 times. I want us to be friends at the end of this deal.
Yep, 100%.
I want you to call me back, not just for buying and selling, but who are you using for this contractor? Hey, where do you like to eat out? Hey,
Yep.
do you want to go have dinner together?
Yep.
That's what we care about. And I think that's the difference of being in the business for 1 year or 30 years. How long do you want to be in the real estate game?
Yeah,
We'll
absolutely.
Let's go back to and this is going to be an educational piece.
Cool.
Or driving home education. So
Yeah.
does Movement have this organization, do they have the impact on the curriculum when it comes to education in those schools, or is it more or less a resource contribution, backpacks, pencils, things like that?
Yeah, so I can't speak specifically, but I do know that it's fully 100% funded by Movement. So everything that goes into that school, I want to say is handpicked by Movement. So of course they're going to go through the general standard curriculum, but I would want to venture to say that they have other things like financial education and home ownership and things of that nature. And they 100% are funding that, and it's public and free to whoever wants it. So it's available and free and out there, but it is 100% funded by Movement, so they have control over that.
That pumps me up. Again,
Yeah.
I think that, I went to public schools. Did you go to public or private?
Public, yeah.
I went to public schools.
Yeah.
I had a great experience.
Yeah.
We had a phenomenal public school system.
Sure.
Was it perfect? By no means was it perfect.
No, yeah.
But looking back, I definitely, nowadays, I just turned 32. Nowadays, I look at stuff and I go, well, why weren't we told this? Why wasn't
Yeah.
this something that was kind of consistently reminded to us when we were 17, 16 years old? You're going to have to deal with these things.
Yeah.
And I'm not a parent. I'm not a principal. I'm not a politician. I'm not much besides a 32-year-old doing real estate, trying to lead our community. But there's also very applicable things that I think that we should have learned. And it's great to hear that there is change. And I'm also hearing local change here in public schools to talk about just those things. Not balancing a checkbook,
Sure.
but what a mortgage looks like. What is a mortgage? How to do your taxes. What are taxes?
Yeah.
Those are all things that I think that we just, breezed past, and we learned algebra, calculus, chemistry, biology, great foundational pieces to
Sure.
the academia system.
Yeah.
But what are the real world applications to those things, if any, I think needs to be the last part of that conversation. So when you turn 18 or 19 and you graduate high school, you're more or less like ready for real world situations. I don't think we necessarily were. We were all book prepared. We were not real world prepared. Is that a part of living life and, you know, a trial and error? For sure.
Sure.
But I definitely think that impacting younger generations with real world applicable skills is going to be massive for generations.
Yeah.
If we just taught every kid in school Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I think we'd be in a hell of a better place.
Yeah. I had a teacher who gave me, I think it was a business class. I don't know which class it was. I think it was a business class, but yeah, he had us read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I'm very, very thankful for the chance that I got to read that book and that a teacher introduced that to me, because I mean, I think I eventually would have ended up where I am today, but that was definitely a kind of a catalyst that just catapulted me into like the spot where I am because I was introduced to that book.
Just to get you to think differently.
Absolutely.
You know, we're still going to always have 90% of our individuals are going to be waged workers or employees.
Yep.
But for the certain people, the entrepreneurs that might get overlooked and pushed through an education system versus rising them up to be entrepreneurs, I think it's just getting people to think differently about how we make money and maybe the wisest ways to make money. And anyone can take that away. And I saw this statistic recently, and let's make this transition to investments of how it can impact your life.
Yeah.
They think that, you know, to be a landlord or to be a real estate investor, you got to have 1,000 doors. I saw somewhere recently the average real estate investor owns 1.75 doors.
Yeah.
You know, or two. Let's call it just 2 doors.
Sure. Yeah.
2 doors can change your life, depending on what you're buying, where you're buying, the appreciation, the cash flow on that property.
Yeah.
I buy real estate for the tax benefits and the depreciation.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know if that makes you think of anything, but, you know, 2 doors can change people's lives. Do you agree with that?
100% agree with that. On the more long-term rental side, when you're signing annual leases, you can absolutely change your life that way. Because if you think about it, you own a property and let's say you put 10% down. Well, if it's an investment property, you're putting at least 15% down. But with that, you're only putting 15% down and controlling a much larger asset. You have 85% more of money that you're not putting into that deal that's appreciating. So if you put in $100,000 into a $500,000 property, you're not appreciating on that $100,000. You're appreciating on the $500,000 value of that asset. So appreciation alone right there is going to make you so much more money than people realize. And then with that, you're also paying down the principal every month, and there's tax benefits involved, and people just don't know about that. And I wouldn't expect them to know about it. There's not a class on it. They're not teaching about it in high schools or public education systems, so I wouldn't expect them to know about that. But if you start to hear those things, that they do change the way you think about, I guess I don't need that much money to get into real estate investing. And then you have situations with short-term rentals that I see people all the time. They have 2 or 3 properties and they retire off 2 or 3 properties with Airbnb or Vrbo, whatever it may be. And those 2 or 3 properties bring in excess of multi-6 figures a year just from a couple properties that they're already managed by somebody else. So you're more or less just sitting back, making the decisions on a day-to-day basis. But otherwise, you're making 6 figures by just hanging out, sitting on your phone and texting a couple people about the property management side of things.
I got a few buddies. I'm a part of this group called Go Abundance.
Okay.
It's more or less these wealthy individuals that kind of come together and are trying to live bigger lives.
Sure.
Through different pillars of their life, and it involves, you know, genuine contribution, giving back, genuine connections, bucket list adventures, and there's a few other pillars that they focus on. But again, to live a bigger life. There's a bunch of guys in there. They got 3 or 4 short-term rentals.
Yeah.
And the net alone is like $150,000, $200,000, and they got property management, they got appreciation. They're in the Smoky Mountains, they're in Palm Springs, they're in Florida. One is in the Bourbon Trail in Kentucky, and they're just living life.
Yep.
One back to that. One or 2 doors in STRs can not just change your life, but replace a W-2.
Absolutely.
And it's the bigger picture. And I don't know if this is a known thing, but I heard it from somewhere on social media, and I'm starting to use it, is real estate's the ideal investment. Back to your point. I, income, D, depreciation, E, equity, A, appreciation, and then L, leverage. Leveraging those properties for more properties. And just with the numbers alone, let's say me and you are 25 years old.
Yep.
We buy a primary residence that can also be transitioned into a rental property. You move every single year for the next 10 years by acquiring a property, living in it for a calendar year, not committing mortgage fraud, living in it for a calendar year, and then renting it out and buying the next property. 10 properties alone, cash flowing at $500, $300 a month. You're replacing W-2 income.
100%.
And the appreciation alone and the mortgage buy down, you're changing your life in maybe not today, maybe not in the 10 years, but in that 30 or 40 or 50 years, you're going to have 10 properties paid off worth $2-3 million, and the game's over.
Yep.
The game's over.
That's it.
And then you can use those for leverage. I think the thing on steroids is really using those for leverage to buy more properties.
Yeah.
And the goal doesn't need to be 100. The goal doesn't need to be a 1,000. But if the goal is to, net 10, 20K, that's obtainable in 40 to 50 units.
Yeah.
Easily. Do you have any rental properties?
No. Currently, I am working on getting my first rental properties. I'm actually, hopefully this year, I'm planning to use seller financing to get into some multifamily stuff. So that's another thing that was a mindset shift for me this year, was learning about seller financing and really understanding it at a really deeper level. Because something like that, I know a guy in my area. He's been on Bigger Pockets and he's done the whole thing, and he's a year younger than me actually, but he owns over 100 units, all seller financed. And it's just like, when you start to see that and realize that he broke all the barriers of you got to be older, you got to have all this knowledge or background on real estate. And he really broke into it and went and just did everything that everyone said he couldn't do. And it's super cool, super inspiring to see that. And with seller finance, what you can do is you have the seller, the owner, finance majority of that property's value, and then you just get other private investors to give you the money for that. They front you the money for that. So out of pocket, buying those 100 properties that he got, probably 90% of those transactions, he didn't put $1 into the transaction and just got to sign a paper for it. So stuff like that is super cool to hear about. And honestly, professionals in the real estate space don't know about that all the time. So why would a regular person that's working their W-2 job know about it either? So that's one of the things that I want to do myself first, and then share with others about my personal experience with that this year, because that's a big goal of mine.
And let's break that down a little bit, because I think that a lot of real estate investors or people getting started are so focused on the cash flow, which again, cash flow needs to happen. But I think that if you're per door somewhere between, at a minimum, 200 to 500, that's probably where you're more or less going to fall. You're doing pretty damn good. But let's say that he has to sacrifice short term, and let's call it average cost per door, but average cash flow per door. So he's not necessarily imposing what he makes per unit, but off of 100 units, what is that average? That's the biggest thing to take up. So is he taking hits on a few properties? Maybe. But what matters is that he's actually getting those properties. That's the big thing that matters. And then that's going to change and evolve over time when it actually comes to those averages. What were you going to say?
It's funny because that's exactly the thought process that I had. And in his teachings and in the things that he shared, he actually only looks for cash flow day one. That's all he looks for. That's the number one thing, because appreciation is great for him, but he knows that appreciation can't pay his bills. So everything that he has, he goes cash flow day one, and that's how he buys his properties, which is super cool. And now he's a little more leveraged, so he can probably make a couple more opportunities where it isn't as much cash flow. But when he was starting out, it was all cash flow day one to pay the bills.
Is he Pace Morby? Because Pace Morby's got that line. He goes, what does he say? He goes, are you familiar with Pace Morby?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, if you've gotten into a creative financing realm, there's no one at the top of the game besides Pace Morby with stuff to and seller financing. He goes, appreciation will come and go, but cash flow will always be here, whatever the line is. And he makes all the decisions based on cash flow. What's the guy's name that's local to you?
Cody Davis.
Cody Davis. I just want to look him up. Let's give him a follow. But speaking of seller financing, people aren't thinking about it. And the big thing with maybe seller financing is terms, figuring out what's going to work best for all parties. But Pace Morby also talks about this. I'm willing to go a little bit higher, maybe 90 cents on the dollar, and overpay for an investment when it comes to numbers if I'm given terms.
Yeah.
And he's getting crazy seller finance deals like 3%.
Yeah. Yep.
2.5% just by overpaying $40,000, $50,000 getting those properties, but because of his interest rate, he's still able to cash flow. Yep. He believes he has the appreciation by forced appreciation, raising those rents, and getting those doors, and that's crazy.
Yes.
So I think that's something that's a great takeaway for every single person is to agree. It's got to be those terms, and that's where you're able to get 100% seller financed at 3% for 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
The list goes on just by giving them a little bit closer to what they want for a take home. Do you know how Cody's structuring those things at this point in time, or what is your thought on how you would structure a seller finance deal?
Yeah. So I mean, his basics are essentially they will give the owner the price they want, because that's what most people are attached to when they're trying to sell a property is the price. There's nothing else they're really thinking about. It's like, how much money am I going to get out of the deal? And so a lot of the structure is like, you get your price, but I get my terms. And one of the things they say is like, price is very important, but terms are everything. Because you can have the right price, but if you have the best terms, like it doesn't matter what the price is. If those terms mean that you can cash flow $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month from that property, then you'll take those terms every day of the week. Even if the property is only worth $1 million right now, but you're paying $2 million for it, if you're cash flowing every day, every month, that amount of money, then it doesn't matter what the price is. So, I think it's definitely giving the seller the price that they're looking for is one of the most important parts of the structure. And with that, you're also going to find some situations where maybe the property isn't as bank financeable. So you're not having as much competition when it comes to other people that are looking to purchase that property. So you get to be a little more creative with the terms of that deal because there's not as much competition when it comes to selling that property or buying that property.
And price holds up the deal for sometimes traditional financing and or seller selling.
Yeah.
So if you approach them creatively, and I think that's a big opportunity right now, and this is something that's on my little goal sheet is to do a sub 2 or to do a creative financing seller finance deal for 2023.
Yeah.
I would ideally love to do it for an 8-unit property.
Yeah.
Sacrificing on, and two, again, between me and you, if we sacrifice on price or give them the price they want, but we're getting phenomenal terms, I mean, I ain't ever selling that property if the numbers make sense. How are you, and again, both the question kind of goes to you and to Cody, how are you planning on finding those deals potentially for a seller finance opportunity? Yeah,
it's super funny because I've mentored under Cody for a bit now, and everything that I've learned from, like, if you could break it down to one more or less sentence, is like, just like keep it simple, like just keep it simple. So what he'll tell you is he find all his deals on Google Maps. So he'll go to Google Maps and he looks for the long roofs, and then finds the owner information of that property, and then just calls them up, finds their skip traces or whatever he does to find their phone number, and just calls them and ask them some basic questions like, how'd you get started, like where you're at, and it's as simple as that. It's as simple as a Google Map search, finding a long roof and just giving them a call and starting the conversation. And building some rapport and not selling them on anything. Hey, I'm Cody Davis, and I'm looking to, hear more about your story and how you got started, and what's this property? It's an 8-unit, cool. When did you buy that? Oh, you built it? Oh, hey, do you have any other ones? Are you looking to get out of the game? Yeah. And you know what? And maybe if the answer is no, when the answer does turn yes, and they're thinking about, hey, who's that guy that called me? Yep. That's who I want to sell that property to. Just building a little bit of rapport. Yep. That's awesome. And two, I think that the reason a lot of people don't get invested into real estate is paralysis analysis, and which is hand in hand overthinking about the process. Yep. We only started investing in real estate
a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
and we're up to 12 doors. They're all duplexes. We're super happy with them right now. The guy that we partner with and are more or less sometimes our private money lender, he just likes duplexes. They're simple, they're easy, and they're a great place to get started.
Sure.
Do we ever trade them up to a larger unit? I hope so. That's what I ideally would like to do. But what was the difference between us not getting started and getting started? Just saying yes.
Yep.
Getting started, crunching a number and making an offer, period. It's not hard.
Yep.
And then once you get under contract, if you get that opportunity, ask the right questions to the Cody Davises of the world to say, hey, what do we do? Hey, it's all good. Get an inspection.
Yeah.
Go through that process. And again, stop overthinking it. Keep it simple, stupid. And we're not reinventing the wheel. Just realize what we got to do from point A to point Z to protect yourself as an investor to make it a smooth transaction, a good deal, and a win-win for all parties. That's massive. Do you have any goals, expectations, timelines for buying your first door?
So I guess the goal is by the end of this year is to do that. That's the thing is like once you learn about creative financing and seller financing and all these things, it's like you're not so much restricted by certain bank underwriting or things of that nature. Because for me, when I just switched over to commission, like it's not easy to find bank financing for somebody that just switched to commission. So there's a lot of roadblocks that you assume are there, and then you find out about these new creative ways to do things, and it's like, oh, I guess the roadblocks they're not there anymore. So that was a big mindset shift for myself. So then I was like, okay, I gotta get after it then and figure it out. So it's for this year, and I'd probably say, I don't know, like, because seeing Cody do it, like he's a year younger than me, and like realizing like he did it in a couple of years, he got to 100 units, and he's freaking 22 right now. It's like, all right, well, I guess there's no excuse for me to not do the same thing. So I'd say for myself, I tried like and hit double digits by the end of the year because his first property I think was 8 or 12 units. So I mean it's just right there. It's right there, and you find the right deal. The money's always going to find the right deal. So I'd say try to say double digits by the end of this year.
This is also a Pace Morby thing of how he got started. The money should never restrict the deal. So I think a lot of people are concerned about the financing portion of things, which again, the financing is a portion of it.
Yep.
But the guys like Cody Davis who are 22 years old and have 100 doors are proof it doesn't freaking matter.
No.
It should not freaking matter.
Nope.
And then 2, let's take seller financing out of it. You can get commercial financing on an 8+ or a 6+ unit, and it's just based on the business at that point in time. You're not. It's very Grant Cardone. I don't need a credit score to buy my units. It's all about cash flow, and it's gonna go to be an analysis of that property. In some regards, it might be a reflection of you or the collateral onto you as well. But the money will always come if 100%. The deal is right.
Absolutely.
If the deal makes sense, you will always be able to finance that, whether it's with private money lenders, hard money lenders, creative financing, or commercial lending, depending on what the product looks like. There's avenues. And I think that's the first and the last thing that people talk themselves out of investing in real estate. I can't afford it.
Yeah.
If I could afford it, if Cole can afford it, if Cody can afford it, I think you could figure out a way to afford it. Individual watching this that is not started just yet, but wants to get started. And again, look at Cody, 22 years. You said he's 22 years old?
He's a year younger than me, so I'm 23 right now. I'll turn 24 here shortly. And yeah, he might be 23 now. He might have just turned 23, but yeah, 22 or 23.
Doesn't even matter. We can call him 40 years old. 40 years old, and if he's got 100 doors at 40 years old in two years or less,
it's like
that's amazing.
It is.
Where does Cody invest at?
So he is almost all in. I think he's all in Washington right now. So there's a city called Moses Lake, and that's the majority of his investments are over in Moses Lake. So it's not a super crazy high appreciation area like Seattle, but it's very steady appreciation, very steady population growth. There's good solid jobs there that aren't going to go anywhere. The industry's solid there. Just keeping it simple, keeping it easy and stable, and that's really his focus right now.
Big word, stable.
Yeah.
I am not in large communities. I'm in smaller communities that are about 10 to 20,000 in population.
Yeah.
They're outside of major metro areas, 40 minutes roughly, but stable.
Yes.
and quality rental markets. And what I mean by that is in our community right here, it's like 80% homeowners, 20% renters. Where I invest in, it's about 50% homeowners, 50% renters.
Yeah.
That's a great thing to impact positive rental markets.
Sure.
Is it's going to be competitive, but the competition drives that, I guess, fair rent value per se. And I'll give you a few examples. Some of our duplexes, I knew I was buying deals, but I bought them for like $160,000. Unheard of anywhere else in the country, but $160K each, 80 grand a side, 80 grand a door. Overnight, doing nothing, and there's no gouging, there's no unfair rents. It's based on supply and demand. Overnight, $1,100.
Wow.
Per side.
Yeah.
Cash flow on that is stupid.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And but back if I didn't do my education, if I didn't understand what the opportunities were, really crunch my numbers to know what my potential cash flow was going to be, already be investing, and then nowadays I will overpay because more or less like we're creating the standard for rents at that point in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we will overpay, knowing where we can land, but that's just leveraging education and relying on our experience on that end. I asked you when you're going to buy your first door to kind of create a, now it's going to be documented.
Yep.
Will buy his first door or first few doors in 2023.
Yeah.
Where do you want to buy?
I mean, I don't know that I have a specific area quite yet. I want to apply those same concepts and principles. So keeping it stable, keeping it secure is going to be the most important thing. And I don't know if that's really good, if it's going to be in state, if it's going to be out of state. Because that's another thing too, is you start to see, oh, well, these people are just buying out of state, and people don't realize that you can buy out of state and just have people manage everything else about the transaction, about managing the property. And so it could be in state, it could be out of state, wherever I find the deal. I don't know yet. I need to put some more time into finding some locations, but I mean, it's really the world, I guess.
Anywhere. Yeah, the advice that I give nowadays, and by no means am I a bigger pockets investor. Well, I guess if the average is 2 units, I guess we're above average.
There you go.
Real estate investors. Yeah. But my advice is normally this: buy the deal that gets you to want to buy the next deal. I think a lot of real estate investors will buy the first deal and go, "This is stupid. Like, what did I do?"
Yeah.
Maybe it's a deal that's in a bad area. Maybe it's it's in an area that has a bad demographic for renters that are going to destroy your properties. And that's going to be a quick buy, sell, lose money. And this dawned on me when I was in Vegas at a Ryan Pineda event. I ran to the airport. I was in the airport. I ran into 2 guys. I forget what the interaction was, but we ended up sitting down and having dinner. They're from LA, shooting the shit, talking about investment properties. They really want to get started into investments. And actually, I need to shoot them a text today to say, "Where did you buy your first door?"
Yeah, there you go.
And they were asking me a bunch of questions, and it finally dawned on me. I said, "Nope, forget all of that. Buy the first opportunity that, again, is the easiest thing to get you into real estate investing, and that will also, too, want you to buy the next deal." I think that matters. So for you, it might be a local opportunity. And, too, I do think that there's a lot of great education and information of something being this close, so you can learn. Maybe you buy a duplex, maybe you buy a quad, maybe you buy an 8-unit, and you learn really quickly, trial and error. And you do have Cody, but it's a little bit different maybe when you're doing these things yourself. And the first deal we bought, I learned so much about HVAC. I knew HVAC, but now what these things cost, what LVP costs for floors, what the paint should cost, price per square foot, what it takes to renovate a whole bathroom, what it costs to pay for a roof. All of these things now, I mean, knock on wood, now I know whole house plumbing. Now I know whole house water main. And this is huge as well. Real estate investors out there, when you're having conversation with real estate agents or lenders, I think the number one question you have to ask them is, how many doors do you have? Are you looking to invest? Some variation of that question, because I think that matters.
It does.
And if I say no, if I say, "Oh, I've never owned a rental property in my life," how am I going to be able to advise you on that? when it comes to being a landlord or being a real estate agent or being a homeowner, a real estate investor.
Yeah.
And then to you as well, if you're not thinking about these things, if you don't have the resources of, Cody Davis or that sphere around you,
Sure. Yeah.
It's tough to be able to give advice based on lending.
Sure.
And to your point, before I forget, is Movement in Michigan?
From my understanding, Movement has offices in every state.
Okay.
There might be one office, there might be multiple offices, but they have offices in every state.
Gotcha. Every single time I lend, though, it is a conversation with certain lenders if I do traditional financing. But again, my first question is, how many doors do you have?
Yeah.
Because I want them to be advising me to the best of their ability in education from a lending standpoint, because I am relying on you.
Yeah.
That's a big question. And for those real estate investors or soon to be real estate investors, ask that question to those agents.
Yeah.
Ask that question to those lenders to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right individuals. It's like hiring a divorce attorney for a real estate transaction, or you got to get the right people on your team.
Yeah, 100%. That's.
I look forward to seeing you buy your first door, man.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited. It's super exciting, and just seeing more and more people that are doing it, that are breaking the barriers of what standard expectation is of investing in properties is super inspiring for me too. So I'm excited for this year and making it happen.
I've been having a lot of great conversations with people all around the country. Mm-hmm. You're no exception. This is a great conversation. I think that, you and I's of the world have a huge responsibility to change the country, change the conversation, and even on a little level, but that little level makes massive impact.
Sure.
About how we're educating our kids. I have no kids, but how I want to educate my kids.
Absolutely.
How we're educating our community and being these leaders within those. I look forward to see where I'm in 20 years. I look forward to see where you are in 20 years. And it's going to be cool to look back on this day in, what's today? 2023, March or April.
Yep.
And look back and go, wow, how far have we come in 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Mm-hmm. With that being said, we're not holding you to anything, but what does that future look like for Cole if you had to kind of document it today for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it's personally, it's getting experience in both lending and continuing to invest and just continuing to push myself in that area. Ultimately, what my goal is obviously to set myself up, set my family up. But beyond that, I really enjoy teaching. I think everybody enjoys teaching to some degree. It's where I get a lot of my fulfillment, and I get energy from being able to help somebody out. So my goal is to really excel at investing, really excel at the lending side of things, and help teach people how to get into real estate, whether that's in investing or in lending. And I mean, these jobs in real estate are some of the best jobs out there. And people just don't realize that, and they don't necessarily get the best education on how to get started in the jobs and in the investing. So ultimately, over the next however many years it ends up being, I want to, first off, find success for myself and be able to guide people the right way with that success and with that experience that I've created for myself.
Watch out. I'm not even just saying this. The fact that me and you were having these conversations, and I'm young. We're young at 45 years old.
Yeah, absolutely.
The fact that, you're having this conversation and surrounding yourself with the right person, Cody Davis, just to be the one example,
sure.
At 23, 24 years old, watch out. Again, the reason I asked you that question is I kind of wanted to document something for you.
Cool.
So we can look back on in 5 years to kind of see as a metric of where we're going. And I think a huge metric of that would be financial freedom.
Yeah,
but if you're on the same path, and we're always going to work, we're always going to be doing something, we're always going to be educating, teaching, whatever.
Yep.
But like the Cody Davis of the world, I'm sure he's probably financially free from a cash flow standpoint.
Absolutely.
And the kid could travel the world. And I'm a kid too. I don't mean that derogatory, Cody. I'm a kid, but he could travel the world for the rest of his life and be fine.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think financial freedom is a huge component of that. I'm not there just yet. I would love to be there in 1 to 2 years and only work because I absolutely love to do it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah.
If there's anything that I can do for you, you let me know. 2023 for us is all about collaborations versus competition, hence
Absolutely.
these conversations. Even if we turn this into a bi-monthly thing, jumping on, talking about mortgages, talking about investing, keeping this as a metric for you.
Heck
Maybe
yeah.
we pull Cody into the conversation and keep it rolling.
Sure.
Iron sharpens iron.
100%. 100%.
How can the people connect with Cole?
Yeah. So all my social right now is just my first name and last name. So Cole, Cole, and then last name's Cortright, Cortrighd.
Sweet. We will tag. This is going to get sent off to an editor, and then it'll get sent off to. Then it'll get posted probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We'll tag in all those things.
Awesome.
Again, thanks, man. Looking forward to see where this relationship goes. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah. Thanks. You too.
All right, talk to you.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to use those like, comment, and share buttons below. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Pat Lotz Real Estate for more helpful home buying and selling tips. Want a free comparable market analysis? Scan that QR code on your screen or visit our website at www.patlotz.com and fill out the request form. There's lots to love in Livingston County.